Welcome to another day of adventures with Wes and Jeff. Today we are at Great Basin National Park. This was our 50th national park that we have visited, and we drove there from our home near Sacramento across the state of Nevada along Highway 50, the loneliest road in the United States, in our camper truck. Great Basin National Park is located in the east central section of the state of Nevada near the Utah border, 230 miles southwest of Salt Lake City and 291 miles north of Las Vegas, Nevada. This park is 77,180 acres in size and sees about 160,000 visitors per year, making it one of the least visited major national parks in the country. 50,000 of those annual visitors visit the Lehman Marble Caves to see the ornate stalactites, stalagmites, and rare cave shields. This park is home to the ancient 4,000-year-old Bristlecone Pine trees, which are the oldest living organism on Earth. It is also home to Wheeler Peak at 13,063 feet above sea level, and to catch a glimpse of Lehman Rock Glacier, an active rock glacier formed by a thick mantle of ice cemented by boulders and rock debris. Stick with us today and we will show you the things to see and do at this interesting and remote national park. We are at our campsite here at this. We dispersed camp last night at the elevation of 7,500 feet at Sacramento Pass on BLM land, and it's only about 15 miles to Great Basin National Park, which that is Wheeler Peak off in the distance, and it's at the top of the park. It's the highest point. So I just wanted to show you our little campsite. So here's our rig, and that sign there says Sacramento Summit. Where is the sign? There we go. Sacramento Summit, elevation 7,154 feet. There's snow on the peaks in the distance there and around, so it's really pretty terrain, and we're looking forward to visiting the caves and the things that we're going to see here at Great Basin National Park. The dogs are like, where are we? What have you done to us? Where we've driven all day. Took us 8.5 hours to get to this location. At the second visitor center for Great Basin National Park, and it's located in the town of Baker, Nevada, which is just at the base of the park. And it's got a nice little museum and gift shop as well, and similar to the Lehman Caves one. This kind of shows where it is, the Great Basin, Sacramento here. We drove all this distance and we're now here, but the Great Basin goes from here, from this set of mountains all the way over to the Sierra. So that's kind of a neat little map. There's the Bristlecone Pine tree, and tells about some different interactive things you can do, but it tells about the basin and the range and the water and how it flows. There's a nice little video that can be seen, and the night sky. Of course, you know, it's way out here and there's not a lot of light pollution, so it tells about the different animals, and it tells about the old Bristlecone. Look at this guy here. That's pretty cool. He puffs up. Mice and different things that call this their home. And this was a tree that was 4,900 years old, bristlecone. And this is a section of the tree that was cut down in 1964. So it was so old, and that's one of the reasons why they made this a national park, is because they wanted to make sure that we hold on to this for future generations. But look how big this raven is. He's a big guy. And falcon. The different habitat, the waterfall that comes down off of the peaks, and the early people. For over 1,300 years, people have lived in the Great Basin, adapting to changes and pioneering new ways to survive and thrive in this harsh desert environment. This is a pit house that they made, and different things that they made out of the twigs and things they could find here. And so it's a nice little visitor center. And then they've got a ranger that'll answer questions for you. And then they have the t-shirts and different things that you can purchase as souvenirs. Here at Great Basin National Park, our first stop is the ranching exhibition. And it's a little exhibit that explains about the area, the history of the area, and the different uses of the land out in the very eastern part of Nevada. The ranching exhibit has like a few seats here so that the ranger can explain about the area, and it has a great view of the surrounding area of Great Basin National Park, with of course the peaks off in the distance there. It's just Jeff and I, and we are reading the little plaques here and the informational interpretive signs that they have. This explains about the pioneers headed west in the 1800s in search of gold, passed through this Great Basin area, and they deemed it inhospitable. But with dreams of riches in California fell through, some of the pioneers returned to this rugged, desolate land where they established farms and ranches, creating the agriculture foundation of today. As in much of the West, early attempts at ranching proved disastrous due to the lack of knowledge of the environment. And ranchers learned hard lessons about the variations and the harshness of this climate. These lessons gave the rancher a deeper understanding of the utilization of the renewable resources in this valley below and throughout the Great Basin. Ranchers, as stewards of the land, produce a sustained yield of wool from lambs and beef. Their long-term commitment to the land and their communities has made this livestock industry a cornerstone of the Great Basin economy. Equally important, it provides a window into the history of the American West and its valuable legacy. Yeehaw! Jeff says yeehaw. Funny guy. There he is. There is no requirement fee to enter this national park. However, you cannot enter the Lehman Caves on your own. Access is strictly restricted to ranger guided tours, which require a paid per person ticket and an advance reservation. The Lehman Caves Visitor Center sits about 5.5 miles as you ascend up the hill from the town of Baker, Nevada. As you enter the parking lot of the Visitor Center, the historic Lehman Orchard is an interesting point of interest. These apricot trees here at the Lehman Caves Visitor Center shows you how these were pruned back so that they still produce fruit since the 1890s, when they were first planted here by Lehman. And when he owned this property, he had 3 different types of fruit trees, and those fruit trees, an orchard of apricots, apple, pear, and peaches. And the largest ones here are apricots. But he planted them back in the late 1800s, and they still produce fruit today, every year. And today we are visiting the Lehman Caves Visitor Center. It's here at the park. It's one of the main visitor centers. There's 2 visitor centers, one here in the park and the other one just outside the park in the town of Baker, Nevada. So I'm going to give you just a quick little tour of this visitor center. This visitor center is kind of small, but it highlights the different areas of the park that make this unique. The one thing is it's so dark and so remote that it's designated as a dark sky area of the United States because there's not a lot of light pollution. The other thing is there are caves here underneath the visitor center to the back of it that were formed in the limestone, and they were discovered back in the late 1800s in 1885 by a man by the name of Lehman, last name Lehman, that settled this area from the state of Ohio. And he did ranching and farming here, and he stumbled upon the cave, and then he started promoting the cave and had visitors start to come visit it. He had to lower him down by a ladder in order to get down into the caves. And then the federal government took it over in the 1920s in order to preserve it, and they made it an actual national monument. This tells about the caves and the different organisms that live in the caves. These caves are thousands of years old, and we took a little tour of the cave, and it was the Grand Palace tour, which they offer several ranger-led tours here. We definitely would recommend that you get tickets ahead of time because they do sell out, but we were able to get our tickets about a week and a half before, so we were able to take the tours. The other thing that's really interesting about this particular park is the Bristlecone Pine tree. The Bristlecone Pine tree is the oldest living organism in the world, and it can live up to 5,000 years old. And the oldest one was found here, and unfortunately it is dead, but they start to look like this. They have twisted little spines to them, but it's a very harsh environment for it to live here. So it's a bristlecone pine, and it's also home to the state of Nevada's tallest peak, and that is Wheeler Peak, and it's at the very top of the scenic drive, the 12-mile scenic drive. So this is the visitor center. Lots of great information about how the caves were formed and the history, as well as the bristlecone pine tree and Wheeler Peak. And here's all the information, and these are the rangers taking the tickets, as well as instructing the tours and guiding the tours through the park. This is the way back out to the caves, and a little trail there. They have a little gift shop. And here at Lehman Caves Visitor Center, there's a nice little nature walk. It's called the Mountain View Nature Walk, and it walks over to this little cabin that's called the Rhodes Cabin. And it was built early on when this first became a national monument back in the early 1900s. And the caretakers, the Rhodes, Clarence and Bev Rhodes, lived in this cabin and protected this area early on before this became a national park. The Rhodes cabin was one of 12 built structures built in the early 1900s, when this was a place where visitors would stay the night. After the caves here became a national monument in 1922, this cabin remained as lodging for the family appointed as caretakers for the cave. It was built with local timbered logs, originally chinked together with mud and concrete. The original roof was plank and sod, supported by log beams, and the original floor was dirt. Our hike continued through the juniper and pinyon forest. The Utah juniper has scaly yellow-green leaves and bark that looks like it is peeling into strips. This bark was used by Native Americans to make rope, mats, sandals, and even diapers. It was a very nice short nature trail with lots of different and unique flowers, plants, and trees to see along the way.
That's what you took a picture of.
Oh, wasn't Wheeler Peak?
Wheeler Peak's behind it.
Oh, okay. Here on the Mountain View trail, it's only 0.3 of a mile. It kind of goes up in the little hills above the visitor center. There's this structure that is the original entrance to the Lehman Caves, and they put this structure over it to keep people out and to allow the bats to still be able to go in at dusk and at sunrise, and then it allows the bats to exit the cave at sunset, so they can go out and feed out in the basin, and they're protected from that. So this is the structure here, and it said in the early 1900s, visitors descended into the cave through this wooden shed covering the natural entrance. In 1939, the National Park Service blasted a tunnel into the hillside behind the visitor center, providing easier access. The natural opening was covered in ensuing years, disrupting airflow and limiting bat access. So in 1997, the bat capable gate was installed to correct these problems. So we came up with a solution so that the bats still have their habitat. So that's pretty cool. At the opposite end of the trail leads back to the visitor center, where we met up with our ranger who led our cave tour. The guided tours are offered daily, with the lodge room tour that takes 60 minutes and offered 4 times a day, and the Grand Palace tour, which takes 90 minutes and offered 5 times a day. These caves are here because millions of years ago, this region was covered by an ancient shallow ocean. Thick layers of marine organisms built up and compressed into limestone and dolomite rock, which later dissolved when acidic water carved underground tunnels through fractures in the stone.
Because this cave has a lot of different stories that surround it. Maybe Absalom Lehman was the first one to find the cave, but he was definitely the first one to name the cave. And that's sort of what I want to talk about today through the rest of our tour. Why do these places and these rooms that we go into, why are they going to be named the things that they are? When something has a name given to it, it might give us a little bit of backstory, but it could also provide a misconception to us. We might think of that place as being used as some way that it maybe no longer is. So while we're traveling through the caves today, each room does have a set name for safety, but I would love it if you all would just pick out something you liked. What speaks to you in each individual cave room that we'll get through? Metamorphosed into a marble and limestone from the sea. And it slowly but surely shifted its way up north to this section of Major Nevada that you're in today. Now there's a lot of sulfur in that water, and over time, the sulfur and the gases in that sulfur came up through that water and created sulfuric acid, which essentially crafted these huge rooms that you're standing in today without any of the formations. So once we get to that point, the water that has since filled up this area with sulfuric acid and gases starts to come down. The water table lowers. If you look over here, you can actually see how that water table lowered. You'll see very perfect little almost circular indents of how the cave was originally formed and crafted by these levels of water that slowing them down. After enough time, this water sank below the surface, which left a lot of cracks and holes right in the ceiling, leaving room for groundwater and rainwater, which would come up from above, pick up all sorts of minerals, particles, specifically calcium, and drip by drip would come right through these cracks and form some of these incredible speleothems that you see today. Now, this is my big test. Does anyone know what they're called when they're hanging from the ceiling? stalactites, because they hang tightly to the ceiling. Now, sadly, we don't get to smack any of these rocks today, but supposedly it used to sound like a big gong. Some of these speleothems that are going to be broken along the sides here haven't shown any signs of coming back. There aren't any soda straws coming down off of them, and there aren't too many signs that they're going to continue on. If you look around, you might see a whole lot of broken off chunks, a whole lot of perfectly snapped little pieces of stalactites, stalagmites, stalactites, all sorts of great stuff. You see, Absalom Lehman had another rule of this cave. If you can break it, you can take it. So folks would come in here specifically looking for a nice souvenir to take home to show that they have themselves entered these caves and made it out alive. There's going to be a whole lot more evidence of folks being in this cave, as you'll see as we continue on. Have we found any fossils in this cave? Yes and no. So not fossils in the way you'd think, maybe dinosaur bones or like an imprint of something. But those original pack rat middens that we came across before, there's actually another one just right behind you here. You see, when we go in and study those, we've learned that when mice, and specifically pack rats, will pee, it will actually crystallize over time and will encase the things that they ate and all of their fun digestive things, and it will actually hold them in a crystalline structure. So we can go and check out some of these middens after hundreds of years, and we can still tell what they eat and how they actually ate in the cave and brought things from above deep into their little middens. So not maybe necessarily dinosaur fossils, but really cool poop fossils. Shoved together. We're not really sure how these things grow and form. It's still a little bit of a mystery in the cave science community. We don't know why Lehman Caves has a bunch of them. We don't know why they decide to show up all around. But keep your eye out. They're a super cool, rare cave formation. And that's cool. All right. some places where we've actually tried to stabilize certain sections. Usually it's all for nothing. The kid's real strong. Anything in this room maybe stick out to anyone? The writings? Yeah, definitely. And you see, these writings are upwards of 100 years old. Technically, you just need to be older than 50. So the National Park Service will call these guys inscriptions. Now, if you look around, there's so many different inscriptions along this room. And a lot of that was because it was so hard to actually get into this room. You see, we all had the pleasure of walking through the Panama Canal that was built, I believe, in the late 1940s by the CCC. But if you were one of those lucky pioneers first entering into this cave, you would have been met by a solid rock wall right there. So as you walked up, someone mentioned it, they thought they saw a wedding cake looking formation. You would have actually gone up past that and crawled in through, as we call, the fat man's misery. And again, all of this was in the complete darkness. You had nothing but a single candle to light your way through this entire cave. You see, when folks would come to this little skinny section, they would actually drop their candle down and watch it roll down the hill. And they'd sit there with crossed fingers and hands clasped, hoping that their candle would not go out so that they could crawl on down to meet it and be able to explore this section. Time went by, they found cavers would use carbide lanterns, and they would hold those lanterns up to the ceiling and actually burn their names in. Stop it right here. For some reason that light didn't turn on. Has anyone ever been out to the southeast? Maybe the Georgia area? Yes, the cypress swamps. Now you guys are actually in a pretty lucky position. This is the first time since 2017 that there's actually been water in this room. Those folks filming The Wizard of Mars probably would have killed for this. If you look around, you're gonna see a whole lot of water dripping. We got almost 300% of our regular snowpack this year. Now that's a ton of water for this park. Normally 90% of these rooms are gonna be completely dry. But if we could all stand super quiet for like a minute, you might be able to hear it drip. Drip by drip, year after year. Occasionally a bubble will form at the very bottom, and it won't drip, that water will just cascade over the bubble. Well, over time that bubble starts to get a little outer shell, and water flows over that outer shell. Forms another shell.
Lehman Cave is the longest cave system in the state of Nevada and a must-see while visiting Great Basin National Park. Jeff and I were quite amazed at all the interesting sections and the complex cave formations on this Grand Palace tour. At the end of our tour, we even got to see this rare cave-dwelling Great Basin Sudae scorpion with 8 legs and large claw-like appendages called pedipalps that they use to grab their prey. I'm at Osceola Ditch Trail, which is only 0.3 of a mile to get down to the actual ditch, and then it continues on for 5.3 miles. And what the Osceola Ditch was, this is the trailhead here, but in water is referred to as liquid gold because it's so scarce. In the town of Osceola near here, water was the key to gold itself. In the 1880s, the bold plan was to make and divert water from this Lehman Creek down the hill here, all the way to Osceola, nearly 18 miles away. The water would be used to wash the mountainsides, exposing the gold hidden underneath. The ditch ultimately cost more than it was worth and quickly fell into disrepair, like the dreams of so many miners. All that is left is the Osceola Ditch are pieces and fragments along the trail. So the actual trail is here. It says, we're here, and you can go down to the ditch and you can walk along the trail, which is 5.3. It's a elevation. It starts at elevation 8565 is where we're at right now, and it drops down 445 feet. But there's some information about, how they discovered gold in this area, and they wanted to, wash the hillsides away with some water, and so they were going to do that, but it actually was too expensive of an endeavor. There's some that's kind of cool, a little pine. So I'm just going to take a little hike down this walkway and go down to the actual ditch itself and take some shots just so you can see what that is all about. It's an easy little hike down here and to the woods. It's just a little elevation drop because we're on the Scenic Drive going along to the Mather Overlook. And so yeah, this explains more about it. And the 5.2 miles one way. And this is the little hike. Easy, not too hard, but this is the little ditch down here. I'll just do a little side trail here. And how it just runs right down the mountain. This is snow melt from up at the top of the mountain, up at Wheeler Peak. It goes along here, nice crystal clear waters. A place called Mather Overlook, and it's about halfway up the scenic 12-mile drive up to Wheeler Peak, and it's a great little overlook. has information placards and it explains who Mather was. Stephen Mather helped preserve this park for future generations. And it explains about Wheeler Peak, that's behind me up there, and the one glacier that is here. So this is the highest peak in Nevada, and it's like 13,000 feet tall. And you start at the base down by the visitor center, and we have driven up over 9,000 feet. This is the point where they stop you because the snow is too thick up there right now. But it's pretty interesting. It's a big parking lot, but it shows the icy landscape, and there's quite a bit of snow on it still at this point. So for much of the last 2 million years, if you were standing here at Mather Overlook, you would have been looking out at a river of ice or a big glacier. Glaciers expanding and shrank many times in the Snake Range during this cooler and wetter time. The glacier filled most of this valley, and at its maximum extended downstream almost to the current day Upper Lehman Creek campground. The glacier transported large amounts of rock, depositing it as lateral moraines along the sides and the terminal moraines at the end of the glacier. The glaciers are also carved out deep rounded bowls called circuits, and Stella and Teresa lakes are found in glacial circuits. And so this is a circuit here that they have an example of. So it's like a carved out section. There we go. There's the little plaque of Mather. And that's the view. And we're up quite high, so that's the valley floor below. Beautiful. And then there's a couple other there's a little restroom here at the overlook. And then this tells about back in the day, you could look to see the incredible Tatorn with its 16-foot wingspan, a huge bird back in the day. The Great Basin during the late Paleostone period, roughly 11,000 to 30,000 years ago, had a wetter climate with valleys full of wetlands and lakes. The Bristlecone pines grew on rocky outcroppings at low elevations. Predators like that Smilodon cat would have hunted prey like camels and small horses, and the pronghorn, which we saw earlier today. And several bear species roamed the landscape. This was an exciting and dangerous time for the early peoples of the Great Basin. And this Great Basin has been home to 5 different tribes over the thousands of years. We stopped here for lunchtime with this beautiful overlook of the scenery, and the dogs are having their lunchtime. Let me flip the camera around so you can see on the Scenic Drive. This is the view. There's the road, and we're at about 9,000 feet, and that's the view of Great Basin Valley there. Dogs having their lunch. We have our chairs. This is going to be our view from our chairs of Great Basin National Park. And that's the Scenic Drive that you can see a car going on it right there. Up the hill. We are along the scenic drive here at Great Basin National Park, and I just wanted to tell you some interesting things about this particular park that's located here in Nevada. This is the view that we have for our lunchtime. We got our rig parked here on one of the overlooks, and I just wanted to let you enjoy the view that we have at this park. This is a scenic drive. It's 12 miles long, and it goes up to the trailhead for Wheeler Peak, which is the tallest point in the state of Nevada, as well as it's the only home of the only glacier that they have in the state of Nevada. So this park is located in east central Nevada near the Utah border. In fact, we could probably see off into Utah there. But it's part of this park is named Great Basin National Park, and it's much it lies in a much larger Great Basin region extending from the Sierra Nevadas in California to the Washoe Mountains over there in Utah. Here the waters and rivers and streams flow into this basin and are unable to drain to any ocean. So all the water flows inland and collects in shallow salt lakes and marshes, mudflats, where it eventually evaporates. There I'm at the Lehman Creek trailhead. It's only 3.4 miles. It goes along the creek. It starts at the Upper Lehman campground at the very back, and there's some trailhead parking that you can park at if you just want to use the trailhead. But it goes along the creek, and it goes all the way up to the Bristlecone Pine Grove and on up to the top of Wheeler Peak. So this is a nice little trail that goes up. So this is the Lehman Creek Trail. Here's the actual trail. Start here, and it's the blue line. Goes all the way up. There's another campground at the top of Lehman Creek that links the lower, the upper, and the Wheeler Peak campgrounds. So it's a nice little trail. You can go as far as you want on this trail. It goes along the creek and it rushes along. It's a very nice trail. It does go up in elevation though. The elevation gain is like 2,360 feet. But you can go to just to the Meadow View, which is at 1.6 of a mile. So it's a nice little trail. As you progress and drive near the end of Wheeler Peak Scenic Drive, you arrive at the summit trailhead at an elevation of about 10,000 feet. This 8.6 mile trail is the most strenuous and steep ascents in the park up to the top of Wheeler Peak, with scenic views of close to 100 miles around on clear days. The summit trail features spectacular views of the high alpine environment dominated with Pole Canyon limestone, which forms the distinct jagged gray cliffs and spires visible flanking the peak. Towards the top of the peak, Prospect Mountain quartz makes up the blocky core of Wheeler Peak, which is a giant gray tan and rust-colored boulder fields. In the area of the trailhead is hiking to nearby beautiful Stella, Teresa, and Brown Lakes, as well as just 2/3 of a mile from the summit trailhead is the 3-mile Bristlecone Trail. This interpretive trail showcases the star of the show here, the nearly 5,000-year-old Bristlecone pine tree. This tree has learned to adapt and thrive in these high elevation, harsh, and above 9,000-foot environments, with some of these trees being germinated long before human civilizations like ancient Egyptians built the pyramids. Their growth is slow due to the short alpine growing season, and their wood is extremely dense and resin rich, making it more resilient and nearly immune to rot, insects, and fungi. These extreme environments that they thrive in are near the top of the tree line on rocky, dry limestone and dolomite soils where howling winds, intense cold, and the sun's high radiation deter other plants. Bristlecone pines are unique in that instead of dying all at once, just parts of the tree can die while a narrow strip of living bark continues and maintains a connection to a few live roots, creating their signature twisted and tortured looking shapes. Thank you for watching our video on Great Basin National Park. Please like and subscribe to our channel for future travel adventures. So whatever you're doing today, get out and enjoy the great outdoors and do something that makes you smile.